In this video, I'm going to show you how to install Drupal on your web server manually. And it's actually very simple to do. But before we do that, I need to talk to you about the requirements that your server must fulfill in order to run Drupal. All right, let's start with the database. Your database must be MySQL 5.5.3 or higher. If you're using MariaDB, it has to be 5.5.20 or higher. Percona 5.5.8 or higher. Postgres 9.1.2 with PDO, or SQLite 3.6.8 or higher. For PHP, you must be running at least PHP 5.5.9. Now that's a fairly robust requirement. You're going to need to talk to your web host to make sure that you have those versions available to you. Drupal cannot be installed with hosts with the magic quotes GPC, magic quotes runtime, or safe mode turned on. They must be turned off. And PHP data objects, or PDO, must be activated for Drupal to install and run correctly. Now, if you've got any questions about any of those settings, I'd encourage you to talk to your web host before you continue. For more information on all of the requirements for Drupal to install, go to drupal.org/requirements. All right, here's our easy 4-step approach to installing Drupal at a web host. Step 1, download Drupal. Step 2, upload Drupal and unpackage it. Step 3, set up a database. Step 4, go to your website. Let's do that together now. I'm going to head over to drupal.org and click Download and Extend. This will always take you to the latest version of Drupal. Click Download Drupal. Your version may change depending on when you take this class. You can download the tar or the zip file, whichever one you prefer. Head back over to the control panel for your web host. Now, your cPanel might look a little bit different. I'm using the brand new theme called Paper Lantern. You might be using a theme called X3, and it looks like this. Either way, you should be familiar with cPanel in order to get your site up and running. I'm going to head back to Paper Lantern, and there's really only a couple of things we need to do. We've downloaded Drupal. Let's go ahead and upload it. Click File Manager. Click Public HTML. If you're on a Windows server, that might be a little bit different, but generally speaking, your public side of your website is going to be under Public HTML. Click the Upload link and go ahead and upload the Drupal file you downloaded a moment ago. And we're done. This might take just a little bit longer depending on your internet speed. All we have to do is now extract it and click Extract Files. That might put all the files in its own folder. Go ahead and double click on that, select all, move, and put it into the root. You can set up Drupal in a subfolder, but we'll put it in the root folder for now. If I go up one level, there we are, everything's there. And then I'm going to delete that folder and that file. And that's actually a pretty smart thing to do. You don't want the tar file just sitting around. All right, that's all we need to do file-wise. As I mentioned, the next thing is to set up a database. Most cPanels have a MySQL database wizard. Let's go ahead and click on that. And let's give our database a name. I'm going to call this D8 test. And in the username, I'm going to put D8 admin with a very secure password. However you get your passwords, just make sure they're very secure and click Create User. And now you connect your user to the database. Go ahead and click All Privileges and click Next Step. And return home. Well, there's step 1, 2, and 3. Doesn't get much simpler than that. Now, all you need to do is to go to your website. All right, go ahead and choose English as your language. Of course, Drupal comes with many language packs available. We'll stick with English for today. Click Save and Continue. Choose the standard profile. Save and Continue. All right, as I look at my requirements review, I've got two messages here that I need to pay attention to. The first one is clean URLs, which are enabled by default with Drupal 8 and can't be turned off, but my server doesn't have that enabled. By clicking on this link, it takes me to the node where I can take a look at the server configuration for clean URLs on a dedicated server or clean URLs on a shared server with htaccess. Now, I'm on a dedicated server where I'm installing it, and so I could easily follow these directions. If you're on a dedicated server or even a shared server, however, and you have access to the FTP, which of course you do because we're installing it this way, all we need to worry about is a .htaccess file. The other one here is PHP OP code caching is highly recommended. Now, I did talk to my web host about this. They said it would not actually affect my site because of other caching that's enabled. You'll want to talk to your web host specifically about this issue. The rest of them, I'm all good to go. PHP 5.5.23, which again is the requirement for Drupal, a memory limit of 128 meg, and all of the other things are ready to go. So I'm going to click Continue anyway. And this is where you put in your database information. If you get this wrong, don't worry, Drupal will tell you. You can come back and correct it. Click Save and Continue. Drupal's checking that the database connection is right, and then moving to the next step of the installation, and now it's installing Drupal. Depending on your server, your internet speed, this takes a few minutes, but it shouldn't take very long. Each module is downloaded from Drupal.org and installed on your server. Go ahead and click pause on the video, and once yours is done, go ahead and restart the video. All right, it looks like the last module is being installed, and we're ready to configure our site. In the site name, go ahead and put my Drupal site. We're going to change that later anyway. Put in your email address. Now, this doesn't have to be a real email address. It can be a fake one. But because this site is actually online, it should be a real one. It's how your site will send emails out to new users and things. And because your site is actually on the internet somewhere, you probably want to have some pretty secure passwords here. My username, however, I'm going to use Rod because that's my name. Safari here is suggesting a pretty secure password, but I'm going to go ahead and enter my own. Drupal will tell me how secure it thinks it is, and it looks like that one's pretty secure. As long as your passwords now match, you're good to go. Choose your default country. And I'm in the Eastern time zone, so I'm going to choose America Detroit. Of course, you can choose that for wherever you are. If you're planning on using this site for real, leave the two bottom ones checked. For me, I'm just going to uncheck Receive Email Notifications because this site won't be around for very long. Click Save and Continue. Drupal's now doing the final checks and installs and setting up of your configuration files. And if everything's successful, you should see the Welcome to my Drupal site message. And that's how to install Drupal manually at your web host.